Welcome to Scoop World Order. It is Thursday. The work week is over for the Buckeyes. They finished their final practice today, a tune-up practice, light shoulder pads, no balls on the ground, real easy day. Warm-up tempo, nothing against the defense, nothing good on good. Really excited. A lot of buzz around the team. Guys are healthy. Guys are chomping at the bit. They have meetings tomorrow, walk through, get on the plane, head to Bloomington, travel, real short trip. Excited to see these boys work. It's going to be like a 30-minute flight, so it's going to be a wild one. I know everyone's chomping at the bit for college football. I cannot wait. The Thursday night game is going to kick off here in about half hour, so we're going to lead you right into it. But first, as always, we appreciate you guys tuning in. If you enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, and click that little alert bell. Those are huge for us. And if you really want to enhance your college football experience, check out BuckeyesCoop.com, which is our home base where we do nonstop college football talk. We'll have a game thread going tonight for the Florida-Utah game. It is just nonstop college football, nonstop Buckeyes, nonstop inside information, the best place and best companion for your viewing experience for the college football season. We have a great gambling thread too. If you guys are into that, it is a way to make a ton of money, which is really fun. With that being said, I'm going to bring in my good friend Nevada Buck. Nevada, how are you?
Doing great, man. It's great to have college football back. It's kind of an exciting time for sure. And boy, what a fun time of the year this is with all the betting. The first part of the year, kind of early to see what teams are going to go. And with Ohio State, got a good young team, some great battles. And so I can't remember the last time I was so jacked about seeing a first game. Normally, you're just looking to get rid of them, questioning whether you're going to cover the spread. But this one, you've got some real question marks that you're looking to be answered. And I think we're going to get some answers on Saturday. So I'm excited.
Yeah, this is it's like Christmas Eve-ish, Thursday. We're starting to get some real games. I think that this is hopefully it'll be a decent game tonight, this Florida-Utah tilt. But everyone's dying to see Kyle McCord control the offense, control the offense, and just see what he can do, what Devin Brown can do. I think there's a lot of intrigue. The O-line, there's a lot of storylines. Thankfully, again, we've said it 80 million times this offseason, we're not opening with a juggernaut. We're opening with maybe the second worst team in the Big Ten behind Northwestern in Indiana. Nevada, give me, look at your crystal ball. What do you see happening the first 3-ish to 5-ish drives with Kyle McCord? Do you see Devin Brown getting in before the 5th drive? Do you think it'll be a set deal where you have the 4th drive, the 3rd drive? We've seen it before. What do you think the rotation will look like, and what do you expect the offense to look like as we start off versus Indiana?
Well, it's absolutely going to be a set rotation. They've already told the guys that. They've already told the guys it's a 1-1A type of situation. There is no backup quarterback. Both are going to play. After the first, I'd say 4 series, which I think are probably going to go 2-2, that they'll probably let the game dictate and kind of, how the performance is kind of dictated, how they do going forward on that. From a play standpoint, I think what you're going to see is you're going to see a ton of, kind of old school football. You're going to see under the center a lot. You're going to see a lot more kind of a direct point A to point B running type of attack. And I think Ohio State's going to look a lot less like the kind of high-flying shotgun, pass around type of team, and more like a kind of a traditional type of set football team probably more so than any time in the last 2 or 3 years. So it's definitely going to be different, definitely going to be a change. And I think it's the way that Ryan Day wants to play it. I feel like the way he's got to play it with these 2 quarterbacks, and I think it's smart. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Shout out to Arigo, shout out Paul, Raymond Wallace, Cody Stein. Appreciate you guys being in here as always. Keep those comments fired up. Comment, I want to hear from you guys. When do we see Devin Brown? Is it before the 5th drive? Is it the 3rd drive? Is it game flow? I've been in a situation, personally, it's not anywhere near as glamorous as quarterback, but in 2004, my redshirt freshman year, I was told I was going to play in the first half. I was told I was going to rotate in the 3rd or 4th series, and we got to halftime and I never rotated in. So again, it's Ryan Day doesn't have an easy gig here, where it's like, you got to manage the emotions, the expectations, the fan base can be absolutely overwhelming because it's the quarterback. It's the first guy to touch the ball after the center on every snap. It's the guy that has to run the show. It's the guy that you need to be an A-plus player to win a national championship. So Ryan's got to manage all the emotions. It can become extremely toxic. It was very interesting to hear for him to say today in his little lightning round deal that he didn't feel like there were factions in the locker room picking sides, and I can tell you that's never the case. There's always sides. There's it's kind of it's so different than an election. I mean, there's always a line down the middle. It's like, are you Team McCord? Are you Team Brown? Again, with Troy and Justin, it was clear as day who was on what side. And I'm sure it's like that in the locker room. Now, you're never going to say that to the media just because that's not how you want to, portray your locker room. But there's always opinions on who should be playing, especially if Kyle McCord stinks. I mean, I remember, when we had bad quarterback play, I remember being in the weight room and hearing receivers dog out the starting quarterback. And I was like, oh my God, this isn't good. And this was a superstar receiver saying it. And I was like, yikes. So again, there's always layers, and again, the one thing you should remember when you listen to our podcast, because, we're brutally honest on here and you don't get that anywhere else talking Ohio State sports. The big thing you have to remember is that the players know who the players are. They're at every practice. They go against the guys. They know who's harder to go against. They know who moves the ball up and down the field. And like I said, like the really good players, they're who the really good players are. So it's going to be very interesting to see, does McCord keep the job? How quick do we see Devin Brown? How do they both do? Does that adjust the starter week 2? Is it already preordained that Devin starts week 2? I think it's going to be fascinating to watch. Nevada, what's your prediction for the first 3 games going into Notre Dame as to how Ryan will handle the QB situation?
Well, I think he's going to, I think he's going to substitute liberally, and I think then it's really going to be dependent upon gameplay. But I think he wants to make the decision sooner than later, and I think that's what people are missing. I think people are thinking that this is going to be something that's going to go on into the 4th game or even into the 3rd game. And I think Ryan would be happy, making a decision sooner than that if one guy can separate. And so, that's really going to be dependent on the game. Who do I think it's going to be? Again, gun to my head, I think Devin Brown's the guy. I think Devin Brown's going to be the guy. But, look, you got to do it on the field. And that's right now what we have is unknowable, because when the lights are brightest and when they're on the road at Indiana, it's going to be an excellent opportunity for these guys to show what they can do. And, Kyle's going to have a chance to do it. He's been around multiple years, 5-star kid. Great chemistry with our best player, Marvin Harrison. So, he's got a chance to, make a statement, make his case for being the number 1 quarterback. But I ultimately think just the athleticism and talent of Devin Brown's going to rule the day. But hey, got to do it on the field. Until you do it on the field, it's all just talk. And so time for the talk's over. Time for the getting it done starts on Saturday.
What is Kyle McCord's ceiling this season to you? Is it? I mean, we've got this ungodly streak of first-team All Big Ten quarterbacks going all the way back to Braxton Miller, which was like an eternity ago, since like 2012. We've had the first-team All Big Ten quarterback every year since then. I mean, that might be one of the craziest streaks in the history of college football. Is that the Ohio State quarterback since 2012 has been the first-team All Big Ten quarterback every single year. Is that his ceiling? Is it All-American? Is it Heisman? And then do Devin Brown. What are your thoughts on that, Nevada?
Well, I mean, I think Devin Brown's got the upside. I mean, I think Devin Brown can win the Heisman. And I think if you can get odds on Devin Brown to win the Heisman at, whatever the odds are, 150 to 1 or whatever the odds are right now, I would take some of that action just because, his upside is just so high. Now, I think his ceiling, is higher, but I think his basement's a little bit lower because, he might not be good, because we just don't know. But I think for, Kyle, look, you hate to put any type of, whammy on somebody like that. But, with Kyle, I just want to see a little bit more. He likes to check down. He likes to play it safe. I know that they've got him scared to death about turning the ball over. And I just wonder if that's the way to play. When you're playing quarterback position, you can't play scared. When you play scared like that, when you've got people looking at it, especially in a quarterback situation where they've got another quarterback waiting in the wings, and I feel like Ryan Day's kind of put him in a difficult spot. You just want to see, will he have it in him to just go back and let it rip, or is he going to play it really carefully with the ball? Because if you're playing it too carefully with the ball, the field compresses. The ball's only going 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 yards down the field. Then, man, I don't care who we're playing against, Western Kentucky, Youngstown State, whomever, they can, kind of tighten the field on you and make it really difficult to operate. And so I think that's going to be the key, and that's going to be one of the things I'm going to be watching for. And I think what everybody should be watching for is how comfortable does Kyle McCord look right off the bat going down the field with the ball. And I think if he can get in a rhythm, he can make that happen. He can start making some throws. He can start moving the thing in chunks like that. Then you watch out. But if he's looking off the first guy and then going to the outlet every time and just checking the thing down, then hey, that's going to be I think that will ultimately determine his ceiling and his floor. So I think that's the number one key to look for is how willing he is to push the ball down the field.
I agree. Like, is he going to be check down Charlie? Is he going to be 18 completions for 20 or 18 completions for 20 attempts and 220 yards? Or is he going to take the shots? I mean, 'cause I think that, the thing about this offense is, especially if you get a guy like Cardinal Tate who can get down the field, taking the top off the defense opens everything up. And I think that it's terrifying given how fast some of these guys are. I don't know if they're ever going to play Jaden Ballard. He's probably going to see and watch again this year. I wish he would play because I think he's a guy that has a tool that, frankly, no one else has. But, I was not stunned, but the fact that they didn't put him back as the punt returner this year when he's the same age as Emeka and the same age as Marvin, I mean, he's draft eligible and they just don't trust him. So they got Xavier, who's the Blocko guy being the kickoff returner. They've got Emeka, who, Emeka's fantastic. And obviously, the kicking game is so different than it used to be because the majority of the kicks are either fair caught or they're minimal gains, especially on kickoff because they took out the wedges, they moved it up. You can fair catch the kickoff. So again, in 10 years, they probably won't have a kickoff anymore just because it's too dangerous of a play. Were you surprised that they kept Emeka on punt? I think it's a nice bone to throw Xavier Johnson as the kickoff returner. Again, I think that, when you got some of these young guys or these guys that aren't the high volume route runners like Marvin and Emeka, I think it's nice to throw them a bone and say, okay, Jaden Ballard, you're going to be our lead punt returner this year. Go do something with it. You get to touch the ball 8 to 10 times a game when our defense is cooking, and go do something with it. Were you surprised by who they picked as kickoff and punt returner?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I think what you have to remember is, in today's college football, you're looking for those swing plays, and there's very few plays that swing a game quicker than fumbling a punt. And there's a number of reasons for that. I mean, all turnovers are bad, but turnovers when when the other team is giving you the ball and you turn it right back over to them, are devastatingly bad. And it's really difficult for teams to come back from those. So I think having a Mecca who's got the best hands or arguably the best hands on the team makes sense to have back there. And as you said, you're fielding mostly sky punts, so you're not looking at many returns on that anyway. And for Xavier, they're looking to manufacture touches for him any way that they can. And we've talked about the running back room going, Trey Henderson, Mayan Williams, Chip, Dallin, Evan Pryor. So, they're going to try to get him touches somewhere. And hey, kickoff return, maybe, the other team's kicking off to us a few times a game, and maybe he gets one and has a chance to do something, but it's a way to, get him the ball, get the ball in his hands. And he's an electric player. If they do kick it and they don't kick it deep enough, I mean, he'll take it back. So, and I don't think he's afraid to do that. I don't think he's unwilling to do that. And that's a really good thing.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be a fascinating game to see if they stick with some of the philosophies they had against us last year. Last year, Indiana went as fast as any team in the country, like no huddle, straight to the line, no checks. And again, that can be either fantastic if you're like Oregon in 2014, where they can just march up and down the field because they're so sound at how they do that. But, if you get a 3 and out and the defense is off the field for 7 or 8 like real time minutes, like that can be devastating. Again, it'll be interesting to see if these guys decide to go fast. They're young up front. They're starting actually an Olentangy Liberty kid, Carter Smith, at left tackle, a kid that Ohio State looked at deep into the process, ended up not offering him, and he's a kid that ended up at Indiana. So, I think that it's going to be a fascinating matchup to see him versus Jack Sawyer all day because Jack's got a lot to prove, and Carter's probably. I guarantee you, he's a kid that wanted that Ohio State offer. So there's going to be some really intriguing matchups. They're very different in terms of their personnel, in terms of how many transfers. I mean, it's like 20 transfers. So I mean, they've cobbled this team together. They've lost a ton of experience. So I think this thing could get real ugly real quick if Ohio State is humming, if Kyle McCord is humming. But I just what's your projection for the game at this point, Nevada? I mean, the hay's in the barn, 2 days out. You feeling big win, cover-ish type win?
Yeah, I'm feeling a coverish kind of win, and I think Indiana's probably better than people think that they are, but I think our defense is definitely better than people that we are, and I think it's going to be one of those situations where the defense will dictate the game, turn the ball over, keep Indiana off the scoreboard, but covering a 4 touchdown or 5 touchdown spreads, that's a big number. It's hard to do that. Do I think I wouldn't bet against the Buckeyes, but I think that, there's probably easier games out there this weekend. But I definitely think Ohio State's well positioned to have a big game against Indiana on Saturday.
Do you want to do a score prediction? Or do you want to say that for BuckeyeScoop.com?
Oh, I'm saving that for BuckeyeScoop.com for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a smart move. I think that with the amount of work our defensive ends have put in and the youth that they have at tackle. I mean, everybody talks about us having new tackles, but Josh Fryer started against Indiana last year. He actually played really well. I watched the film multiple times and focused on him. And, as good as DeJuan was, I think DeJuan kind of hurried up to get back because he didn't want to get Wally pipped. Because, again, if DeJuan wants to hang out and not play, as much as I love DeJuan, Josh Fryer really played well. And, again, this is he'll have that ultra motivation. It's his home state. He's back, where he grew up. I'm sure he'll have a ton of family at the game. So that's always a big motivator. And again, I think that, sometimes it's fun to coach a unit like that offensive line where there's a lot of doubt, where it's nothing but naysayers and haters and, oh, you guys are going to stink. And, oh, you guys are young. And, I mean, if you're Justin Fry and Mike Salini, that's like, it's this absolute, it's like jet fuel for the machine to get rolling, to really get the guys going. I've coached units like that. I've seen very veteran units fall flat, and I've seen young, inexperienced, under-recruited guys like that 14 line. People thought would be a disaster, and by the end of the year, they were just absolutely mauling people. They mauled Alabama, they mauled Oregon, and that was, it was TD, Taylor Decker, it was Billy Price, it was Jacoby Bornis, Elfline, it was Daryl Baldwin. None of those guys had Alabama offers. None of them. None of them had Georgia offers. None of them had Clemson offers or whoever the powerhouses were at the time. Those guys were tough Ohio kids, and they worked really hard. And by the end of the year, they murdered Alabama. I mean, it was amazing. They murdered Oregon, who had Eric Armstead and DeForest Bucker, 2 first-round picks, 2 guys that have made $100 million each in the NFL. So they weren't just steamrolling patsies in Indiana. So really excited to see this O-line. Excited to see Donnie Jackson's leadership, Matt Jones's leadership, as our 2 guards that have played a lot of football, kind of keeping Carson Hinsman square just because, it's his first start. He's never played center in a game before. So, again, he's done it in practice. And, if he can practice against Mike Hall, then Indiana will be an absolute cakewalk. There'll be a little bit of noise, but we go on the silent count anyways. And Indiana, it's nice opening up there because it's not terrifyingly loud like Penn State or Wisconsin or some of those places that we'll see at Wisconsin later in the year. We'll see at Michigan later in the year where it can get kind of loud. But I'm just excited to see how these boys do. Nevada, at the end of the game, give me your projection for offensive player of the game and defensive player of the game for Ohio State.
Well, I'm going to go with the offensive player of the game. I'm going to go with Trayvon Henderson. I think he's going to have a big game. 150 yards, 3 touchdowns, and defensively, I'm going to go with Jordan Hancock. I'm going to say Jordan Hancock is going to have a couple of interceptions, and I think he's going to kind of come out of relative obscurity, come out there, play a really big game, and as a lockdown corner, I think I think we're going to get the hand on the ball a number of times, and I think we're going to double. I guess double 2 over 0 is. I guess it's double, but it seems like infinitely better than the number of interceptions we had last year. I think we're going to double it in the opening game alone. So that's my prediction.
All right, my two. I'm going to go Marvin Harrison Jr. Obviously, easy one, number one player. I'll say 15 catches, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. Kyle McCord peppers them early. The chemistry shines through, and Marvin just eats those guys alive. Defensive player of the game for me is going to be Sonny Styles. I just, him playing that same linebacker that I've been praying they'd play him at is the perfect spot for him. I think he'll be a lethal blitzer, so I'll project 7 tackles, a sack, and I'll throw in a pick just for the heck of it. Maybe get something in the flat. But I just think Sonny, Jim Knowles loved to dial up safety blitzes last year. The famous play where Cam Brown missed a tackle against Michigan and Jack Sawyer had to, drop as a defensive end into that zone and make that tackle. That was a safety blitz, and it's one thing when you're blitzing Ronnie Hickman and guys like that. It's another thing when that safety is Sonny Styles and he's 6'4", 230, and he can run a 4.4. That's a totally different animal for an offensive lineman because, usually a safety can only get home if the offensive lineman just misses him and he's got the speed. But, if an O lineman is legit, like ready for a safety, he's going to body him and lock him down. But with Sonny, it's a little bit different. 6'4", long arms, a lot of power, a lot of speed. He is like a dream candidate to design blitzes for if I'm Jim Knowles and I get to fashion up some stuff late at night. Like I'm trying to figure out where do we put Sonny and how do we get him free? How do you make him the focal point of the blitz package against Indiana? And, you can bring him off the edge. You can bring him up the middle. You can run cross dogs with him. Like it's just very exciting to think of the stuff you can do with Sonny Styles when he's the guy that's supposed to be, when the blitz is designed for him to get home. So those are my 2 picks. Well, we're going to wrap this thing up. It is college football season. It is week 1. It's kicking off shortly in about 10 minutes. Florida, Utah, Nevada. Any final thoughts? We'll be getting on again tomorrow, talking a little final pregame spiel, and we'll do a pregame show on Saturday morning and a postgame show on Saturday afternoon. But your final thoughts, Nevada?
Well, just I think that leadership is going to be really key for this year's team, and I think a lot of people look at that as kind of a maybe I don't know if it's an intangible or something that they're not sure how you quantify something like that. But I've always said, on your teams, your best players have, it's a lot easier to have leadership when your best players are your veteran guys, when your best players are your younger guys like we had last year, or the older guys like C.J. Stroud, who's not really a kind of a holler guy. That I think there's a leadership void. And I think this year you've got those guys that are veterans that have been there, they're upperclassmen, and they're your best players. And I think as a result, we've kind of filled that leadership void. There's more guys that are holding more guys accountable. And I think it's going to show on the field. I think it's going to be one of the big keys to this year's 2023 Ohio State Buckeyes is going to be leadership. And I think that's a real thing.
I totally agree. I think that the 3 captain thing is a great deal. Again, having Xavier, Cade, Tommy as your 3 captains, I think is huge. And you also have a lot of guys that are veteran that are third-year juniors, which is a lot different than being a third-year sophomore or redshirt sophomore like CJ was, because Marvin Harrison played in the Rose Bowl as a freshman. So these guys they've actually played 3 years of football. Obviously, they're going to treat this like their senior year because they're going to be out. But guys like Mike Hall are tough. Guys like Jack Sawyer, JT are tough. There's going to be a lot of guys that are going to be real tricky. Lathan Ransom is a guy. Mildly surprised he wasn't a captain, just given how much he's played. But you got a lot of guys that are, this is year 3, and for a lot of them, they know they're gone at the end of the year. So, there's going to be a lot of guys speaking up and trying to, again, the NFL and money are the ultimate motivators for these guys. So there's going to be a lot of guys trying to have careers so they can get out. And I think that, again, for Ohio State and our fan base, that's fantastic because these guys are really going to play well. I think Denzel Burke, Davison Igbinosun, and Davison to me is maybe the story of the offseason in terms of how he assimilated and raised that entire cornerback room up. I know that guys were hurt, but Davison showed up, man, and it was like everybody had to sharpen their pencil all of a sudden because he's a dude. He's a dog, and he's a guy that the guys in the WAC, the players love him, but he has that nasty attitude that I think you need to play corner because corner is probably the hardest position in sports just because if you touch a guy, it's a 5-yard penalty, automatic first down, illegal touching. DPIs were huge. It's just such a hard position to play, especially when you got to check guys like Marvin and Emeka who are just phenomenal at what they do. So, but I'm just really excited about it. So we are going to wrap this show up. Appreciate you guys tuning in. If you guys enjoyed this, please give us a like, click subscribe, and also click that little alert bell. As always, we appreciate our regulars tuning in here. You guys are the best. We're going to be at BuckeyeScoop.com all night watching that Florida-Utah game. It's just always fun to have people to talk to. Hopefully Florida gets killed because everybody around here hates Florida. But again, it's always fun to be on our game thread. Our game thread on Saturday will be absolutely epic. I can't wait for it. It's going to be a blast. So we appreciate you guys tuning in. So if you guys would love to join the best community on the internet, BuckeyeScoop.com is a spot for you. I'm telling you, we've got a great community, and it is a blast to be on there. I'm going to be there all night. Got the iPad all charged up, ready to go. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. We made it. It is football season. Go Bucks.